Hey everybody, welcome back to Gideon Stuff. Today we're taking a look at a kind of unique knife. Now before we get into this review, there's a couple of things that we need to talk about first. First of all, this knife was sent to the channel by Old Tonto Guy, who is a channel member. Thank you so much, I really appreciate it. This is a knife that I had never even heard of before he sent it, so it was really awesome for me to kind of experience this. Next, this knife is discontinued. This is a Kershaw Dimension, by the way. I don't think I said the name yet. This is a Kershaw Dimension. This knife is discontinued. I'm not sure if you can still find them places, but it is no longer being made. So, you know, some of you probably aren't going to like that I'm reviewing it, but this knife is interesting enough and cool enough that I figured it deserved its own review. And maybe if you come across one at a garage sale or in a lot of knives online on eBay or something, maybe this will give you some information on whether or not you want to buy this knife. So let's go ahead and start off this review with the blade length measurement, as we always do. So sharpened edge here coming in a little bit over 3 inches, about, it's in that 3 1/4 range. Overall blade length, about 3 1/4. Whoa, we're off screen. There you go, about 3 1/4. So kind of a normal sized EDC knife. Let's go ahead and bring out our size comparisons. There's our Rat 1. There's our Rat 2. Very similar in overall length to the Rat 2, but quite a bit taller and quite a bit chunkier as well. We'll talk more about that as the review continues. Next up, let's get our some VVs. There's the Praxis, and here's the Elementum. Again, more similar in overall length to the Elementum, but it is a bigger knife. Let's bring out our USA made comparisons. Here's our Spyderco pair of 2. Here is our Benchmade bug out. Cool. And let's go ahead and close off this review by comparing it against a couple of other Kershaws. Here's the Kershaw Mini Natrix. I've had this out quite a bit recently. Here's the Kershaw capsule that we reviewed just a couple of weeks ago. And since I have it out here, let's bring out another discontinued Kershaw. Here's the Kershaw Bare Knuckle. I cannot believe Kershaw discontinued the Bare Knuckle. Kershaw, what are you thinking? This is one of your best USA made models. Love the Bare Knuckle, but it's been discontinued. So, materials, what are we looking at here? Well, we have a blade of 8CR13, so nothing, super fantastic. This is a button lock, steel pocket clip that is mountable in 3 positions, and titanium scales. Yes, you heard me right, titanium scales. This kind of weird, right? Kind of unique. 8CR and titanium, that's not really a combination that I've ever seen before, but this knife has it. It is a button lock, as you can see here, and it is assisted. So let's go ahead and do some cutting. Hey guys, ready to do some review cutting? I'm not sure I am. I am getting, it's been a while since I have done some review cutting. Haven't had a whole lot of time. Getting into field work season again, so I'm going to be losing basically all my weekends here pretty soon. Going to be out days on end in the San Andres, mapping and sampling the Mazatzal province. So, going to be pretty busy with that. Had a little bit of free time today. I got to go back home right after this and write an essay. So, yeah, we're getting busy. And I'm worried that I'll run out of time to do very many review cuttings. I'm tired today, so I think I'm only going to do this one. I want to do more, but I already filmed the video today. So today we're taking a look at the Kershaw Dimension. Very interesting knife. This is a discontinued model, but I want to review it anyways because content. Very cool knife. Let's go ahead and talk about it. Let's start off with that action. This is an assisted knife, and it's a button lock. So we'll drop to there, and then you push it all the way. Very strong spring, by the way. This is Kershaw Speed Safe Assist, which is a very good, reliable assist. It really does fire out. And those thumb studs, really big. Very easy to use this knife with gloves. Yeah, works out pretty well. Sometimes, I don't know why, like sometimes if I hold it wrong, it doesn't lock. I don't know. I can never do it on purpose though. We'll talk about that more at the table because I've only had an issue with it like twice. And maybe it's just because the knife was cold at the time. But anyways, action for an assisted knife, pretty good. This is, I think, this and another knife that was sent by Old Tonto guy who sent this are the only spring-assisted button locks that aren't autos that I've ever handled. But yeah, pretty interesting. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about the ergonomics. This is a chunky knife, but the ergonomics are actually pretty nice. You got good jimping up here. Really only one way to hold this knife, but it works out. Got a pretty solid grip here. Honestly, this reminds me of a Hinderer design. This isn't a Hinderer design, but look at it. You can't tell me that doesn't look very Hindery. And in hand, the ergos remind me a lot of a Hinderer knife. This could be a brother to like the Kershaw Cryo or something. It definitely does look like a Hinderer. Titanium scales, got a nice feel to them. The ergonomics, they look like they'd be a little bit weird, but honestly, they're fine. They're absolutely fine. I won't say they're amazing, but they're fine. All right, carry. We have a pocket clip that you can mount left or right, tip up carry, or you can mount it for, I would consider this left-hand tip-up carry so that the blade's against the back of your pocket, but, you know, whatever. So three-way mountable clip, pretty cool. I like seeing options like that. Let's go ahead and stick it in the pocket. I am not wearing jeans today, so bear with me, but slides in pretty well. Does have a little bit of grip. Is a little more difficult with jeans, but overall, it's not bad. It's kind of Kershaw's standard clip. A lot of their clips are kind of like this, but there we go. All right, let's go ahead and get some cutting done. This blade is 8CR, I believe, or maybe it's OS 8. I'm pretty sure it's 8CR. All right, grab us our piece of cardboard here. Hollow ground on this blade, or hollow grind. Slices pretty well. Nice drop point. You can get to your utility cuts fairly easily. It's a good blade for slicing cardboard and stuff. Really no complaints. It does have a pretty robust stock, and I think that's really going to help it out with the rope. Ooh, left-handed rope cut. Wow. That felt great. That honestly felt great. All right, let's see what we're dealing with here. Yep. Yeah, that blade really has what it takes to just kind of crunch through all the layers of that rope. Very, very nice. Alrighty. Pool noodle time. Is it too thick for the pool noodle? Let's see here. Honestly, that felt amazing. Holy cow. Look at how consistent that little slice is there. That is ridiculous. I tried to go even thinner on this one. Not a problem at all. And that big one, very, very nice. That actually, I'll be honest, that felt great. I've been using this knife for a couple of weeks now, and I've never had any complaints with it, but I am really surprised at how well it did that pool noodle. Really great blade on this thing here. All right, let's go ahead and get back to the table and talk about it. Alrighty, let's go ahead and get into what I'm liking and not liking about the Kershaw Dimension. First thing that I'm liking is this is a very Kershaw looking knife. Kershaw has a very particular style that's kind of futuristic. And what I like about this knife is it looks like if you just saw a silhouette of this knife, it would look very simple, very plain. This is pretty much the most vanilla drop point blade you can get. However, Kershaw still managed to make it look like it came right out of a Star Trek episode. We've got these kind of aggressive corners on the scales. We've got this really interesting milling. We have these huge, oversized, see-through thumb studs. It's really, really weird looking while still being very generic knife shaped. It's a really weird design language that I absolutely love. It's so interesting, right? It kind of reminds me of a knife that would be made by a human from the Paleolithic era who was suddenly transported tens of thousands of years into the future and given access to space grade materials, right? It kind of looks like a stone knife mixed with a spaceship. I love it. Maybe that didn't make a whole lot of sense, but I think it's a really, really cool look. Very, very interesting. The stonewash on the blade is also really, really nice. Kershaw always does a great stonewash. I love seeing their stonewash. Very, very cool. The scales, the titanium scales, are finished really, really nicely too. You can see they're kind of blasted, and this does have some wear marks. You can see, just snail trails and stuff, but they honestly blend in pretty well, which is always a good thing. Let's go ahead and keep talking about this blade. Yeah, it's 8CR. It's not an amazing steel. We'll talk about that later. But the blade itself is actually really, really nice. We do have a hollow grind, but the blade is still robust. You can see that tip there. You can see that we do thin out considerably because of that hollow grind, but the blade is also just really robust and durable. And what this gives you is a knife that cuts really, really well and slices fairly well, but is also pretty resistant to harder tasks. This is the kind of blade that I think is great for breaking down cardboard. If you're breaking down a lot of cardboard for recycling, and maybe this is cardboard that might have staples or something in it, if you accidentally hit something hard, your blade's going to be able to resist that impact and still be a good slicer. So I think the blade is absolutely excellent. Great drop point shape. You can get to your utility cuts really well. You got a nice little bit of straight, got some good belly, and a very, very pokey tip. Really, really nice blade, kind of no nonsense, no frills. It's great. Next thing, the ergonomics on this knife actually work out a lot better than you would expect. We do have these angular corners here, but the edges of the titanium have been chamfered and softened really, really nicely. And that kind of helps those corners to not feel like sharp impact zones. The jimping up here is actually really nice. This thumb ramp lands in a great spot for me. Now, this is not a knife that I would want to sit down and whittle wood with for long periods of time because, yeah, it's not super ergonomic. But the ergonomics are functional. And in this grip that the knife wants you to take, I feel like you're in a really, really good spot with that tip. Like, that tip is really, really in line with your grip. You can grab it like this, of course, but this is just a really solid feeling grip. I can get a long push if I need to pierce something. If I need to use that tip, I can get to it really, really easily. It feels like the handle and the blade go together very, very well, and I appreciate that. Again, this is not the most ergonomic knife I've ever handled, but it is surprisingly good. Next thing I like is that they give you plenty of options for carry. So you can see here the clip is reversible. Focus up, camera. It's a rainy day outside, so sometimes the lighting doesn't really work out that well. There we go. You can see here the clip is reversible for tip-up carry, right or left. You can also mount it for tip-down carry. I would consider this to be left-hand tip-down carry. That way, if you have it in your left pocket, the blade is against the seam. Some people might call this right-hand tip-down carry. Whatever, potato, tomato. But obviously they didn't drill it for tip down carry on this side because the button would have been in the way. So 3 means of carrying. I always think that's a great idea. Give options to your customers. Don't just assume that they're going to be okay with whatever you give them. Reversible clips, at the very least, I think should be a staple on every knife, but that's a different conversation. The fin finish is pretty nice. Let's see, the centering on this guy might actually be a little bit off now because I have been using him, but could adjust that really, really easily. Let's talk about the action. Those thumb studs are really comfortable. Very, very good thumb studs. I wouldn't mind seeing these thumb studs these thumb studs on other knife models. Very cool. You can see they've got like a hex head in them. Focus up camera. So you can tighten these. You can remove them if you want to. The flipper works fine. It's a very kind of low profile flipper. There's no jimping on it, but because this is an assisted knife, you really don't need it. Now, I know people have strong opinions about assists, and I've talked about assists several times on my channel. You guys know how I feel about them. I think Kershaw's Speed Safe is one of the better assists out there. In fact, it's the one that is kind of the OG, and it's the one that everyone tries to copy. I've said this many, many times. Not all assists are created equally. You'll get MTechs that are trying to copy the Kershaw Speed Safe that have the same kind of system, and that will not last as long as a Speed Safe will. I'm not saying that the Speed Safe will last indefinitely, but it's a good assist. It feels nice. It definitely has a lot of power. I mean, this kicks. It's got recoil. Very, very strong assist. And I don't mind it. I think it's fine. This is a button lock, and a button lock with an assist is kind of an interesting idea. I actually think this is better than like a frame lock with an assist, because the frame lock, an assisted frame lock, you got to push that over, and then you're fighting against the spring, to bring it down if you're closing it one-handed. Otherwise, you unlock it like that, close it two-handed. With this button lock, it's easy to work one-handed because it drops to there, and then you can close it. Drop, close. So this is an assist that works excellently in one hand, and I think that's really, really cool. Good job, Kershaw. I think that's, one more thing to talk about with Fit and Finish that I really, really like. All the hardware is T8. That's pretty great. That's pretty great. These body screws are the same as the pivot screw. You only need one tool to take this thing apart. Really, really awesome. And speaking of taking it apart, if you do, you'll look in here, you'll see that there is a steel cartridge just to kind of house a button lock mechanism right there. Shouldn't be too difficult to take apart. Of course, button locks have springs with them. This is a spring assisted knife. You're going to be dealing with a lot of springs, but I think it'll probably be fine. All right, let's go ahead and talk about some of the things that I'm not liking. Number one, this is a kind of heavy knife. I'm not someone that really cares that much about weight, but if you are someone that cares a lot about weight, you probably won't like this. It is heavy for its size. Next thing, obviously, the assist is not going to be for everyone. Whatever. The pocket clip is not the greatest. It's a little bit tight and grabby. It's not terrible. I mean, it's usable, but it's just not ideal. I mean, look how I can barely even pry that up. It's pretty strong, pretty serious. Talking about the blade, you can see here they didn't really get the sharpening choil right at all, but whatever. I kind of wish that they had gone with a different steel than 8CR. I think this knife first came out in 2008, so maybe there weren't a lot of other options available to them at the time. But I would have loved to see this in like 12C or 14C, because I know Kershaw used those steels a lot. The titanium scales are really, really cool, but I wish they'd milled this pattern on the other side too. Just seems kind of weird to me that they didn't. I like symmetry, and this makes my OCD kind of crazy. And next thing to talk about is I had a couple of issues with lockup, but only in like the unboxing video. While I was like carrying and using this knife, it was fine. I haven't failed it in a long time, but when I first unboxed it, it wouldn't lock up. I flip it and it wouldn't lock up. And at first I thought maybe I'm holding it at the wrong angle, like maybe if I hold it differently, it doesn't lock up. But that doesn't seem to be the case. What I think happened is that the knife was just cold because it had been sitting at the post office for a little bit in the box. So maybe the knife was just cold and that's why it was kind of failing. But I don't know. I haven't had any problems with it since. I figure I should mention it because it happened, but the knife has been completely fine ever since. So yeah, I guess it's kind of a non-issue, but whatever. So let's go ahead and go on to my final conclusions on this knife. What do I think? I actually really, really like this knife. It's very unique. I did not realize the scales were titanium, and when I found out that they were after doing some research on this knife, I was kind of impressed. It's kind of weird to have the 8CR and the titanium. Now, what advantage the titanium scales give you? Probably none. If these were steel scales, I can imagine this knife would have been a brick. It's already heavy as is, but with steel scales, it would have been dangerously heavy, a boat anchor. As far as a usable tool goes, yeah, this knife is great. Great blade, decent ergos, good one-hand usability for an assisted knife. Yeah, I was pretty pleased with that. The blade performed really, really well for me. The button lock is kind of interesting. An assisted button lock isn't something you see all the time. Interestingly enough, though, Old Tonto Guy sent me another assisted button lock that we'll be reviewing here pretty soon, which is kind of cool. But overall, a very, very neat knife. Should you go looking for one now that they're discontinued? I wouldn't say so. I haven't talked about the price on this knife because obviously the price that these were when they originally came out doesn't really matter anymore. If you're finding these on the secondary market, the price is going to be all over the place, right? Should you go seeking this knife out? I don't think there's any reason to, unless you're just absolutely in love with the design or you're like a Kershaw completionist and you don't have this one. However, if you come across this knife at a reasonable price online or at a pawn shop or something, go ahead and pick it up. I think you might enjoy it. It's a very interesting little knife. It's very cool, and I'm definitely glad that I had the opportunity to review it. So there we go, the Kershaw Dimension. Very, very neat knife. Thank you again to Old Tonto Guy for sending this in. And speaking of Old Tonto Guy, he's a channel member. I'm going to put my channel members at the cowboy level up here right now. If you're interested in becoming a channel member, there's a button down below. You get access to all kinds of cool perks and knife giveaways. And the giveaways are open to members at any level. Once we hit 8 members, I'm going to be doing a giveaway. So we're almost there. Become a member. But yeah, thank you to them. Again, if you enjoyed this video, leave it a like, comment below, and subscribe. I've been Gideon, and I'll see you in the next one. Adios.